Good morning, you guys. Let's get a little funky. Take a look at the person next to you. Say God loves you and I love you too. Feel the love and the unity. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. Take a look at the person next to you. Say, I recognize the God in you. Feel the love and the unity. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. Every walk of life, every creed and color, and kinship unite in honor of God and each other. Yeah, take a look at the person next to you. Say namaste, I bow to you. Feel the love and the unity. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. Da, 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 in the name of love. Yeah!
Jason Goldstein's back in the house. Let's give him some
All
love.
right. Thank you.
So, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living. You're in Granada Hills, in case you didn't know. If you're looking for O'Grady's, it's across the street. It'll be there after the service. You might need a drink afterwards. Who knows? My name's Reverend Dr. Michael McMorrow. I got to get used to saying that these days. And I'm the spiritual director here at the Center for Spiritual Living in Granada Hills, California, where we are live streaming this morning. So we welcome all who practice their beliefs in faith and love. And you just heard Mr. Jason Goldstein, and we're going to hear from Andrea Recht, our board president and presider for the day. So come on up. And so we're going to start our service the way we start all of our services here, by taking a deep conscious breath and release. And in that release, just allow ourselves to surrender to this moment, this eternal now moment, as we come together for our call to service, which we call lighting the flames of faith. And we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all people, all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here this morning. So as we light the first candle, it's for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the second candle for shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the third candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. The eighth candle we light for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. The ninth candle we light for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. The 10th candle we light for all those who are as yet unaware of the power and presence of Spirit in their lives, and for the space we hold for them here at our center, within our online community, and within our own hearts. And we might remember this morning the wonderful Barbara Shane who died over the weekend. As we light the healing candle, please put silently into the light the names of anyone you wish to have experience the healing flame of God's eternal love.
There is one flame that burns in our hearts. There is one light that shines through our love. We light this flame with faith. We light this flame with faith. We find this light within our own souls. There is one flame, one light within.
And how very grateful I am to recognize this one flame as the life of God, living and breathing and having its beingness as the entire manifest universe, knowing that it is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, everywhere expressing itself. I'm grateful to know that it is expressing itself as my life, the life of each of us here, and that, in fact, this very service is a divine and perfect idea in the mind of God, and I am claiming and accepting and knowing that it unfolds with absolute perfection. Blessing Reverend Dr. Michael McMorrow as he steps forward and allows himself to be a conduit for the word of infinite intelligence to speak itself through and as his very life, knowing that the words that he speaks fall on open hearts and open minds, and that we are lifted and shifted into a new way of beingness by means of this service. And for this, I remain thankful and grateful as I lovingly release this word to that aspect of infinite intelligence known as law, which always says yes, so I know it is done. And in agreement, we simply say together, and so it is. Good morning, beloved community. It is a beautiful new day of opportunity, is it not? And I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so I throw myself open to the universe and trust in the unfoldment of my life. Isn't that a wonderful affirmation? Would you be willing to repeat it after me? Today is a beautiful new day of opportunity. I know that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. I throw myself open to the universe and trust in the unfoldment of my life. Sounds like that one was a little too long. But thank you for indulging me in that. When I think about moments of opportunities or setting intentions for the new year, for example, I always think about ways that I can anchor myself ever more deeply in spiritual principle and recognize that God is closer than hands and feet, nearer than my neck vein, that it is the very breath I breathe and the very beating of my heart itself. And every chance I have to anchor more deeply in that is a good moment. And I think that's one of the reasons, I know it's one of the reasons why I come to spiritual community, so that I can anchor more deeply in that awareness. And I was speaking with a friend recently and was reminded of a Beckwithism, a quote from the Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith at Agape, who says this, and it's not exact, but he said that that when we anchor and have faith more in what we can't see than what we can see, when I trust more in what I don't see than what I do see, what I do see I won't see, and what I don't see I will see. Going to break that down once more because it took me a minute to grasp that fully. When I trust more in what I don't see than what I do see I won't see, and what I don't see I will see. So for example, if I'm given a diagnosis, when I trust more fully in the perfection of spirit as my life, when I trust more fully in the wholeness that already is, rather than dis-ease, I'm going to die, I'm going to be so sick, how am I ever going to blah, 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 then I begin to see the perfection rather than the dis-ease, for example, or lack, or limitation, or we can apply it to whatever challenge or opportunity we choose to, trusting more in the infinite invisible, infinite intelligence, and know that it is expressing itself in, through, and as every situation, even when it feels like something else. To trust that everything is that is presenting itself is a sheep in wolf's clothing. And then we don't describe what we see what we describe. We begin to see our mental equivalent. So we get to be very careful what our mental equivalent is. And Holmes says it this way. He says that we are all immersed in the atmosphere of our own thinking, and this decides what shall take place in our lives. We are immersed in the atmosphere of our own thinking, and that's what determines how our life out pictures. It's amazing how that works, and we get to play around with those ideas and concepts and prove them to ourselves. We had a practitioner meeting a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about one of the ideas that came up was, what does it mean to live a spiritual life? And for me, that's part of what it means, to just be grounded and anchored in principle no matter what shows up. So a friend of mine who I don't see today loaned me a book by Joel Goldsmith called Men Are Not Meant to Cry, I think it's called. And I opened it the other day, just randomly opened it to a page, and here's what I saw. That in the world of appearances, are lack, disease, limitation, disharmony, fill in the blank. But we are dealing with principles that must be brought to conscious remembrance. I get to remember, to recognize, to recognize that Spirit is everywhere expressing himself. Where did that come from? Itself. Spirit is everywhere expressing itself. It's funny, that old idea, right? Anyway, I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad we get to practice this together and live spiritual lives together. Thank you so much.
Good morning, you guys.
Good
Hello
morning.
from behind the podium. Hello. I hope everyone's had a great week so far. This song meant a lot to me growing up, still means a lot to me. And I thought it was about something else. And it took growing up to realize it's about a whole lot more. So I hope you enjoy it. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now. Oh, you're a hard one. I know that you've got your reasons. Yeah, these things that are pleasing you can hurt you somehow. Don't you draw the queen of diamonds, boy. She'll beat you if she's able. You know the queen of hearts is always your best bet. Now it seems to me some fine things have been laid upon the table, but you only want the ones that you can't get. Desperado, oh, you ain't getting no younger. Your pain and your hunger, they're driving you home. And freedom, well, that's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Don't your feet get cold in the winter time? The sky won't snow and the sun won't shine. It's hard to tell the nighttime from the day. You're losing all your highs and lows. Ain't it funny how the feeling goes away? Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You come down from your fences and open the gate. It may be raining, but there's a rainbow above you.
let somebody love you before it's too late.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. It's wonderful to have you back.
Thank you.
Jason was running his 3rd marathon last Sunday
Thank you.
and completed it,
And completed it.
even though he didn't want to, at mile 18, you said?
No, I quit at mile 18 and then I came back.
Well, he quit, but then he came back. That's the important
Yeah, I walked
part.
back, so I finished the race. Yeah,
Yeah, you finished, man. I don't care if you crawled back. You finished.
I finished.
It's nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
So I'm going to highlight some announcements. I don't have a sheet, but Mike Carlin was nice enough to, it's not here. Well, oh, no, it is. I beg your pardon. My bad. So first of all, welcome. If you're new, if this is your first time here, welcome, and let us just love you up. I would like to invite you, if you're online and or in person, and this is your first time, or if you've been around for a while but haven't yet taken the dive into membership. So we would invite you to consider that. I believe the membership application is now available on our website. I believe. I think it is. So you can fill that out online, or you could fill it out in person, or you could just keep coming back, however you choose. And also, if you would like prayer support, you can find a practitioner online at cslgh.org. Sherry Gideons is usually available as our online practitioner for prayer support. And if you want more fellowship, well, after the meeting is our Zoom fellowship meeting. After the service today is our Zoom fellowship meeting at 11:45, and today it will be facilitated by our own practitioner, Judy Dunkley. Also online today is the Law of Attraction group with Mike Carland and the Healing Support group with Reverend Jessica. Nikki has her online class, Living Intentionally in 2022. Is that ongoing? Has that started? And it's at 3:00 on Sundays?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the second class.
This is the second week for that, so jump on in if you feel like it. If you're ready to set some intentional intentions for the new year. And then next Sunday is the Animal Kinship Group with Reverend Kathy. So, I don't know, did I say something funny? No, she just thought of something funny. The slides, okay. So anyway, you got the idea. We have a lot going on here. A lot of it is still online. But, by the way, we have plenty of room in the sanctuary for you to come in and join us. You don't need to make a reservation online anymore. We are only having 20 people at a time, and we have plenty of room for you to come on down and join us in person if you feel inclined. So now we're going to do our principles, declaration of principles. So if you would please stand and join me in declaring these principles. We believe in one universal spirit, manifesting through all, natural and incarnated in us. We believe that the universal spirit is personal to and reveals itself through everyone who recognizes its presence. We believe that our faith operates upon a law of mind which automatically manifests in our experience according to that faith. We believe in the unity of all life and in the immortality of the individual soul, forever expanding. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the givingness of life to all.
I got up this morning singing, God is so good. I got up this morning singing, God is so good. I got up this morning singing, God is so good. My God is so good to me. I'm feeling good down in my soul. God is so good. I'm feeling good down in my soul. God is so good. I'm feeling good down in my soul. God is so good. My God is so good to me.
One more time.
I got up this morning singing, God is so good. I got up this morning singing, God is so good. I got up this morning singing, God is so good. My God is so good to me.
One more time. Here we go.
I'm feeling good down in my soul. God is so good. I'm feeling good down in my soul. God is so good. I'm feeling good down in my soul. God is so good. My God is so good to me. My God is so. My God is so. My God is so good to me.
Missed it by half a beat.
It's okay.
Oh well. Didn't take my cue. So I'm wearing a bandana this week because I've been treating my face. Apparently, some folks are curious. What the hell happened to the Rev's face? So I'm just treating it so that I won't have any issues with sun damage. So after 30 plus years of construction, with a body that was built for a northern latitude, but here I am in Southern Cal. So anyway, if I do this, I will have skin as smooth as a baby's behind next week. So next week it'll just be a little pink. But I got to tell you, I'm glad I'm on the healing side of this thing because it is uncomfortable. Yeah. So, but I'm happy to say it's the first time, I think this might be the first time that I will take more from the government than I have put in through the Medicare thing. It's the first time I've ever used Medicare. Yeah, there's kind of a sense of, yeah, finally. Yeah. Of course, then there's the other side that, I had to get old enough to get here, but, But anyway, it is, they said, so which one of these do you use? I don't know. You're supposed to know, I says to the doctor. So anyway, so that was kind of fun this week. And so this week we're talking about breathe in the view for this whole month. Breathe in the view. We have this lovely scene from some really jagged mountains. I'm guessing the Tetons because they're so jagged, but I don't really know. And we're going to be speaking to seeing beauty and feeling grace. Seeing beauty and feeling grace. And so for this Sunday, the talk notes have been provided to us from this Center for Spiritual Living in Greater Cincinnati out of Ohio, where they have a new minister out there, Reverend JJ. And I think she actually goes by Reverend D. But where she encourages us to take a sacred pause to appreciate the beauty, grace, and feeling tone of the presence of Spirit within. That we recognize that each point along this journey has brought us beautifully to this place of awakened grace, right? Or to breathe in the view, if you will. Now, this can mean a lot of different things. One certainly is that we find ourselves here, so it must be that we're supposed to be here, otherwise we wouldn't be here, right? And this is an interesting thing to consider if we don't like where we are right now. Because there have been many times I know in my own life where I have scratched my head and said, how the hell did I get myself into this one? Right? And what I know about that is I have lived a life where I have been anchored in secular living, where it did in fact appear that all of life was happening to me, that it was a battle between me and them, that I was out to get all I could get, and that if I just manipulated the world in a certain way and tried to bulldoze it using a force of will, that I would get my way. And I would say that to a certain extent that I was successful in this regard until I wasn't. Because what happened in my own experience is I started to believe my own BS, right? My own belief system. So I remember the day in my 20s, I had some land. I had a reputation in this small town that I was living in as a young up-and-coming go-getter contractor type. And I remember sitting on these lots that I had secured. I don't even think I was 22, 23 at the time. And I remember saying out loud, looking at my land, right? It was just a lot, but I felt like I was part of, like Rock Hudson and Giant, right? That I owned acres and acres. It was a lot. In fact, it was a small lot. But I did this by myself. And I remember saying out loud, I didn't need God for any of this. Yeah. So I was feeling my oats in my early 20s. Right? And what happened after that was not really a life of futility. I don't want to say that. But there was something that was definitely missing. Something that was definitely missing. There was time where I would stop and breathe in the view for sure. Right? But I was not making room to try to connect with some sense of something that was greater than I was. Because I believed that all I had to do was force it through an act of will to get my way. So there was a time when this notion of beauty and grace were notions that were foreign to me, really, in the purest sense of my understanding of it. Right? That beauty was, certainly a beautiful girl or a nice sunset, right? That had aspects of satisfaction within it. But there was also tied to that a longing to connecting with something that I had a sense that this was just surface stuff that I couldn't quite access. Because I believed that God was up there and that I was down here. That we were two separate enterprises. That it was two separate enterprises to this thing called life. So I can tell you that there was no sacred pause going on. right? In fact, I was thinking as Jason was playing that song, Desperado, what came to mind to me was Cuervo Gold, tequila. Because I don't know why I made that connection to that, right? But what I can say is that the first time that I was really aware of a sense of grace, of a sacred pause, was when I went into a 12-step meeting and I really had a sense this could be my answer. Because what I lived with from that moment on the lot was self-will run riot, right? With an energetic 20-something through his 30s. So just imagine your own years in that time, and then just imagine someone who's living it with complete abandon, without regard to anyone or anything. And this is where I found myself. But I remember in that moment having a sense of grace. I remember the speaker was like 21 years old, not some like down and outer pushing a shopping cart, but there was a young girl there. And I'm like, wow. And beautiful from the inside out, right? It's the first time that I was aware of actually seeing people in this way. Because for the first time, like Paul, the scales of prejudice had fallen away, right? But it took my vulnerable heart, right? A heart where I felt completely beaten, for me to be able to see life differently. So I was struck when I was preparing this message today that how much beauty and grace and other aspects of life, but particularly beauty and grace, are often tied together. Because when we feel a sense, when we acknowledge beauty, we often cultivate a feeling tone of grace. And when we have a sense of grace, we see beauty. But what is beauty and what is grace? These are definitions that can be elusive and leave us groping for words. Right? So the dictionary definition is too sterile. Right? And the heart leaves us groping for explanations that often feel incomplete. A linguistic groping that we can often feel when trying to define even what we mean by the word God. And I think this is the space that I found myself in for that 10, 15-year period. A groping, a longing to connect with this thing that I really could not define, and yet still had a sense of, through my haze of crazy living. Now, the writer and lecturer Judge Thomas Troward, he developed a good work around this dilemma of what do we mean by the word G-O-D? What do we mean by the word God? And he developed this idea when he described the 7 qualities of God, right? Life, love, light, power, peace, beauty, joy. Now, of course, I didn't discover these things until much later, for I was still kind of anchored into my religion of origin and my understanding of what the nature of the divine was around that. So I had a sense of the Holy Spirit, right? I had a sense of Christ's principle, but it was tied to separation. It was tied to worthiness rather than a divine birthright. And actually, when you consider the 7 qualities of God, we see that these 7 qualities are reflected within ourselves as well, to the extent that we allow them to be so. Because the crazy thing about that is that for a personality of my type, I often have to soften and to be vulnerable to allow these things to make themselves known, which is can be difficult when you consider when your view is one of being a hard ass, and to be manly is not to be vulnerable. Now, these 7 qualities, perhaps beauty and light, are the only attributes witnessed in this 5 sensory realm. Right? What do you think about that? That these 7 qualities of God, only 2 of them do we sense in this 5 sensory realm. And so staying with this consideration, when you and I acknowledge and maybe even cultivate a connection with any of these 7 attributes, we feel a sense of grace. Right? And in those perfect moments, so even in this place that I was speaking to, this lot where I had this notion that I was an island standing on my own, that I was going to be this great captain of industry in a little town of 5,000 people, right? That I was able to walk to North Beach and look out and see Victoria, Canada, across the straits of Juan de Fuca, and to see Mount Baker off to the right as the sun is coming down below the cloud layer, turning the clouds a crimson color of pink and orange, reflecting off of this snow-capped volcano, Mount Baker. And the air is still and clear. And I have this sense of perfection in the moment. So, this 5 sensory realm, we might see light. Certainly if we're in the dark, we can put the light on, but we don't really have a sense. Light is something we take for granted, yes? I mean, none of us doubts that the sun is going to rise tomorrow, right? So we take light for granted. So we don't see light in the way that Troward is talking about. Now, in this way, beauty alone then has the potential to jolt us out of our 5 sensory haze and instead experience a state of grace, even if we don't really believe in it. Because that's what I believe happened in that moment, right? In that moment when my son was born and I looked in his eyes for the first time and sensed a soul looking back at me. A perfect moment. That beauty is one of those things that can jolt us out of our 5 sensory haze and instead into a state of grace. But again, what is grace? Well, my metaphysical grandfather, Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones, wrote this, that grace is the givingness of spirit to its creation, the logical result of the correct acceptance of life and the correct relationship to spirit. Now, this definition implies that there is some kind of mental component going on here that's tied to this experience of grace. I just kind of gave you an example in my own life of how that's not necessarily so, right? But does this hold true for you? I would add that to experience grace, if we truly want to experience grace, and that there must be a preparation in consciousness, a cultivation of consciousness, if you will. So, as an example, if I were to go back to that same spot and experience all of these things that I described to you, I would have a much deeper experience of that kind of moment today. with the shifted consciousness than I did at that time as a clueless 25-year-old. So it implies there's a mental component. But I would add that to that experience there must be this preparation in consciousness. And Grandpa was all about cultivating consciousness. So I call him Grandpa because he taught Reverend Dr. Maureen Hoyt, and she was my teacher. So Dennis Jones is my metaphysical grandfather, which he really hates it when I say that, which is why I keep saying it, of course. So, but he was, and he was, and he still is, all about cultivating consciousness. For he invented this notion of religious science, of the religious science ABCs, that awareness builds consciousness. But this does not discount an inherent truth about grace, and that is that it is all around us awaiting our recognition of it, right? So it was and is always there. What was lacking was my own attunement to it. Now, if we put these two, and so Butterworth then offers this definition, that the word grace means favor. Now, why are you favored as a child of God? Simply because you are the activity of God expressing itself as you. And then I would add, and everything and everyone else too. Right? So there's nothing exceptional going on here except that we're all exceptional. Right? We're all exceptional. Life is exceptional because all of it is a demonstration of the infinitude of the divine expressing. So if we put these two writers together, we see that when we cultivate a consciousness that is committed to staying awake, alert, and alive, we are intuitively guided to ways of being and seeing grace of the divine blessing our life in all ways, always. Developing consciousness means developing strategies for learning and being open to experience in the heart, mind, and body that we allow a deeper connection with life. So the fellow Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Life, this was a popular book a few years back, that when we walk through a beautiful botanical garden, we feel open and light, that we feel love, we see beauty. And then we don't judge the shape and placement of every leaf, right? So without saying it, he's saying that we cut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit, if you will, from the 7 attributes of the divine, when we allow ourselves to stay stuck in judgment, to stay stuck in resentment, which is not something that we do when we're in a garden. We don't go, oh, that leaf is ugly, and that leaf is beautiful, and this flower is gorgeous, and this one sucks. You know, we don't do that, do we? Right? And yet we often do that in life, particularly with each other. Right? So, of course, this is grist for the mill. This is the stuff we get to work on. And at the same time, this idea of being in the garden, that it's a sweet reminder that we don't have to go far to see beauty. It's not simply the purview of museums and other shut-off places, but is available at all times, for beauty is life itself expressing. And John O'Donohue writes that we have often heard that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And this is usually taken to mean that the sense of beauty is utterly subjective. There is no accounting for taste because each person's taste is different. So we each have a different sense of what beauty is. He goes on to say that the statement has another more subtle meaning, that if our style of looking becomes beautiful, then beauty will become visible and shine forth for us. Now this ties again into this notion that life is consciousness. when we cultivate a consciousness of seeing beauty in everything, right, our eyesight is then attuned to seeing it. If we attune our eyesight to seeing love in everything, we begin to see it and to experience it. So our style of looking becomes beautiful, then beauty will become visible and shine forth for us. So we will be surprised to discover, this is John, we will be surprised to discover beauty in unexpected places where the ungraceful eye would never linger. So we start to see it in places like maybe the beauty of an earthworm, right? The beauty of a weed that's making its way through a crack in the sidewalk. The graced eye, he says, can glimpse beauty anywhere, for beauty does not reserve itself for special elite moments or instances. It does not wait for perfection, but is present already secretly in everything. And when we beautify our gaze, the grace of hidden beauty becomes our joy and our sanctuary. The other thing it does is very transformative in our life, because then when we look back from whence we came, we're no longer full of shame or worse, regret, but instead we embrace the wholeness of who we are. For we understand and know that the beauty of this moment has its roots in whatever challenge, struggle, victory that came before. Just as our days today are the ancestors for our greatest yet to be. So when we wake up and understand that we can use beauty as an indicator for grace, to follow beauty, to have an experience of grace, which is the juice of the Holy Spirit, if you will. Right? This is the thing that opens our hearts, allows us to be in the moment, right now, with whatever is going on, and to know that with God, all things are possible. So let's take a breath. And consider this, that grace is the permanent climate of divine kindness. John O'Donohue, grace is the permanent climate of divine kindness, the perennial infusion of springtime into the winter of bleakness. So whatever challenge any of us are going through in this moment, whatever sense of fear, maybe even trepidation for the week to come, let's just take a breath and release all of that and establish that right now that we live, move, and have our being in a state of grace that is the divine flow of life itself, making itself known in our experience. That we allow this grace now to foster a climate of divine kindness. That we are heartened in this moment courageously to express these expressions of love, kindness, compassion. That we see our vulnerable nature as a thing of strength rather than weakness, as an instrument of the divine song of life, longing to express itself as you and as me. So let's take that notion through this day, cultivate it through our work week. See what's different and come back and check in next week. We'll see what's different.
All right.
Some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people live for the power. Some people live just to play the game. Some people think that physical things define what's within. Well, I've been there before, and that life's a bore so full of the superficial. Some people want it all, but I just don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if it ain't you, baby. Some people want diamond rings, but I just want everything. But everything means nothing if I ain't got you, yeah. Some people search for a fountain. It promises forever young. Some people need 3 dozen roses, and that's the only way to prove you love them. Hand me the world on a silver platter, and what good would it be with no one to share, with no one who truly cares for me? Yes, some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if it ain't you, baby. Yes, some people want diamond rings, but I just want everything. But everything means nothing if I ain't got you, you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Jason Goldstein, everyone. That was really nice, Jason.
Thank you.
Nice job today. All right, so as Reverend Nancy, would you like to bring our offering basket up today? And if you've come prepared to make an offering here in person, great. Just wait until the basket is open. For those of you who are online that we do have many ways from which to give, and that you, frankly, have been really great about taking advantage of practicing generosity by means of the donate button, either on our website, which takes us to PayPal. That's what it looks like on your phone. There's the Facebook page, and then on YouTube, it's in the upper right-hand corner. All of those take you to the PayPal page, or you can continue, which many of you do faithfully, I might add. You can continue to send it in through snail mail. So we will now take the offering. Jason's going to take us in the offering song to give you a moment to do your thing online.
Spirit gives through me, Spirit receives through me, Spirit lives and breathes through me. Spirit lives and breathes through me. Spirit gives through you, Spirit receives through you, Spirit lives and breathes through you. Spirit lives and breathes through you. Spirit gives through us, Spirit receives through us, Spirit lives and breathes through us. Spirit lives and breathes through us.
So going within for just a moment longer, let's take a breath. And just know that this basket represents the many ways for which the individual, that your good makes it to our center. That it represents the generosity of the heart of the individual, where we now, as the people of the spiritual community, accept these gifts with deep love and respect, knowing they go forth to heal, to prosper, and to bless not only the vision and mission of this center, but anyone connected to it in any way. That we extend this blessing to our community of Granada Hills, our city of Los Angeles, our state of California, our United States of America, all of its churches, temples, mosques, schools, universities, the people who attend them, the people who support them, that we know for our planet as well, that all of it is an expression of the divine mind, the beauty, power, peace, truth, light of the living Spirit in expression. And to the extent that we know this to be so, we see it demonstrating in ways great and small. This lifts our hearts. We feel a sense of gratitude that propels us into ways of spiritual living that raise not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us. And that's a good thing. And together we acknowledge this by saying, and so it is. Amen. And so let's thank Jason one more time for a nice job.
Thank you.
Make sure you raise them in the chat. And just thank you all for being here today. I'm going to get down because it looks like I belabored the point a little bit this morning. So thank you for being with us. And we'll see you next week.
How grateful I am in this moment to be lifted by means of this service. How grateful I am that I have opened my time-blinded eyes and attuned my eyesight to beauty and grace. And I declare and accept that as we leave here this day, we have cultivated a conscious remembrance that everything is holy by means of infinite intelligence expressing itself as all that we place our eyes upon. So I bless each of us as we move forward in this day knowing that we arrive at our next destination with a full heart anchored in the 7 principles of God: life, love, light, power, peace, beauty, and joy. And we carry this with us as we move forward in this week, giving thanks for all of it, knowing that it is already done, and it is so. In agreement, we simply say together, and so it is. Amen.
Please join me in singing the peace song.
With me, let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as the power, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Begin with me, let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally.
Thank you, guys. Have a beautiful day.